Hello, everyone. We will discuss a case which related to contract law. This is Mabel pursued the ABC school. This is our group members, and my name is Demi Xia. This is the main point in Mabel's case. There are two consequences about the validity of contract. When the contract is valid, we discuss 3 points in this case, which is law of agency, vitiating factors, and injunction. When the contract is not valid, Mabel has the right to stop public screening of the documentary. The contents is divided by 6 parts, and I'll start with the validity of contract. It's related to the consent and the oral promise and the conduct. Let's start with the consent. We know a contract is a legally binding agreement made between 2 or more parties. It can be established in writing, orally, or through conduct. Legally binding contracts typically require the following essential elements: offer and acceptance, consideration, intention to create legal relation, capacity or legality of object, compliance with formalities, and consent must be genuine. All the above elements must be present. Start with the offer and acceptance. In this case, the ABC school extended an offer to Mabel, and her mother, acting as her guardian, signed the consent letter on her behalf, thereby establishing the offer and acceptance. Except the consideration, the remaining elements are all be present. I'll explain it later by my partner. Let's talk about the consideration. Why consideration is not valid in this consent? Consideration must be real and genuine, and it must have some value, usually measurable in monetary terms. Both parties involved in the contract must promise to provide a benefit to the other. The act of giving a benefit may impose a burden on the party offering it. A contract can be identified by the reciprocal benefits and the burdens assumed by both parties. If an offerer makes a definite promise to another party without any promised benefit in return, the offerer is not legally bound by the promise. In this case, the school invited the director to shoot the documentary, assumed the filming costs, and promised that all proceeds from the movie screening, broadcasting, public display, or distribution would be donated. The school received the benefit and bear the burden, while Mabel did not receive any benefits from the agreement. Therefore, the promise, unsupported by consideration, merely constitutes an agreement and not a legally binding contract. In summary, since not all the above elements are fully present, the consent does not constitute a valid contract. Based on agreement, Mabel has right to express her disagreement with the previous agreement in writing at any time, and thus she has the option to request the cancellation of the documentary screening. Let's discuss the oral and the conduction.
Okay, I'm Zhu Mengqi. Thanks for you to explain the consent part. Next, I will continue to talk about the validity of the contract. Thirdly, an intention to create legal relationships is significantly, in this case, to ensure the successful production of the documentary, the school sought the consent of Mabel's parents to allow her participation in the film production. This indicates an intention to be legally bound by the agreement. Fourthly, capacity is also important. In this case, Mabel's mother signed the consent in April 2013. Additionally, Mabel's mother possesses full legal capacity to act. Moreover, the school has the legal capacity to enter into the contract. Fifthly, the object of the contract must be legal. In this case, the production of the documentary constitutes a lawful activity. Sixthly, compliance with formalities is necessary. In this case, the school sought the consent of Mabel's parents and obtained their signatures on the consent. Finally, consent must be genuine. In this case, there is no evidence of fraudulent and coercive consent between the school and Mabel's parents. Fundraising programs offered by schools and advice sought from parents can be considered as an offer. Mabel's mom just verbally said, "Yeah, sure," to letting Mabel join in on the film stuff at school. Plus, Mabel was all in doing interviews, filming, and helping out with the documentary. Thus, it can be assumed that Mabel's mother, as an offeree, accepted to the offer and consent to be bound by the contract and its terms. Now, the school side is that they give Mabel a shot at some benefit with the documentary, like fame, cash from advertisements, performance, and so on. They believe this benefit can be regarded as an effective consideration. In summary, the verbal promise and the consent signed by Mabel's mother, as well as Mabel's actual participation in the filming, together constituted a valid contract. But from Mabel's perspective, she would say there was undue influence in this contract. So let's move to the next part, validating factors. Undue influence means exploiting a position of power in relation to a person so as to apply pressure, even without using or threatening to use physical force, in a way which significantly impairs the person's ability to make an informed decision. The school, being the stronger party, may have misused the trust or confidence in the relationship between the school and Mabel. Mabel said she didn't really get what she was signing up for because she trusted the school, so she did not read the terms of the contract carefully when her mom signed it, leading to undue influence in this contract. But on the other hand, the school argues that there was sufficient information provided regarding the making of the documentary, and Mabel had a clear understanding of the risks and consequences associated with showing the documentary. They are confident that there was no bullying or unequal power, so the contract is valid. And if Mabel didn't bother to read the agreement, well, that's her own fault. School should not be held liable for breach of the contract. That's all for my part. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Li Yuxuan, and now we will talk about injunction. The meaning of injunction is that An injunction is a court order granted to prevent a person from doing some act violating his undertaking not to do something. Negative stipulation according to a contract. In this case, first of all, we should know that regarding Mabel's options, she could choose to waive her right to resign the contract and instead pursue a claim for damages or seek an injunction. An injunction would be granted if it is deemed just and equitable, and if damages are not an appropriate remedy. And then we will specifically analyze injunction. We want to divide injunction into these parts. I will show the logic chart for 10 seconds. Okay, firstly, we look at injunction before public display. In one hand, when the school has its first in-house screen in September 2022, since the school and Mabel are co-workers in the documentary, if Mabel is not satisfied with the documentary, she has the right to ask the school not to make a public display. In this case, the school still chose public display, and Mabel had the right to apply for an injunction. On the other hand, if Mabel has no objection to the content of documentary, the school can assume that Mabel agrees to the public display of the documentary by default. Okay, then we look at injunction after public display situation. From Mabel's perspective, when the documentary public display, Mabel was not happy with the documentary and suffered from depression. In the contract, the school is not supposed to cause harm to Mabel. So, Mabel can argue that the school breached the contract and ask the court to issue an injunction to force the documentary to be taken down. However, for the ABC school's perspective, the school argues that Mabel was aware of the content of the documentary prior to its public display, and criticized that the documentary didn't harm her and could be public displayed. Therefore, the school did not breach a contract, and the school has the right to proceed with the public display. Okay, that's all for my part. Thank you. And then our partner, Joyce, will present the next part. Thank you.
Well, thank Lily for introducing injunction in detail in this case. My name is Wang Jiayue. Now let's move to part 4, law of agency. It should be mentioned that in this case, there is a special relationship between Mabel and her mother. Given that Mabel was born in 2000, and at the time of signing the consent form, it was 2013. Obviously, at that time, Mabel was a minor and didn't have the ability to sign it. So her mother signed the consent form for her as an agent. When Mabel became an adult, she had the right to withdraw it. But the fact that she didn't object when she reached the age of maturity is ratification implied by conduct. Now let me continue to discuss which court in Hong Kong can Mabel ask for help. Given that Mabel's situation arose in Hong Kong, so she could have pursued her case in the High Court of Hong Kong, which holds unlimited jurisdiction in both civil and criminal matters. She could have initiated legal proceedings in the court of first instance. Then, at the last part of our case analysis, the three conclusions should be mentioned. Firstly, with respect to dispute over validity of the contract, the consent form signed by Mabel's mother couldn't be found valid. However, combined with oral and conduct, it could be a valid one. Secondly, this is despite the fact that there is a relationship of unequal status in education between the school and the student. However, in this contract, both parties are not bound by social rules and are in a relationship of equal status. The ABC school had clearly communicated the school's right to show the documentary on the consent. Thus, the school should not be held negligent for Mabel's failure to clarify the content of the consent. So, Mabel's claim of undue influence fails. Thirdly, injunction. Since Mabel didn't object before the public screening, so she acquiesced that the documentary would not harm her and the school was not in breach of the contract. In conclusion, the court was entitled to dismiss Mabel's application for injunction. Well, that's all for our group presentation. Thank you for your time and listening. This slide shows all our group members' mailboxes. If you have any questions, please contact us without any hesitation. Thank you.